boys. How you doing, folks? We are working Zodiac on the offside, Elvis on the near side. Oh, they just got done with a horse pull yesterday. Zodiac's got a good lot of work in him, including farm work, plowing and dragging and real work. Elvis yesterday just had 3 weeks of work in him, which is about the minimum we like if we're going to compete with him. Our performance yesterday wasn't the best. They weren't together. Elvis was acting just like Elvis should, and he got the jump on Zodiac right off the start, and Zodiac didn't. The whole sled slid his way, and he couldn't catch up. We didn't hook again. Come on, Nick, let's keep on trucking. Whoa, you okay, buddy?
Yep. I caught myself.
So, you know, I always say, when you're not pulling, the best thing to do is quit pulling. And then I thought better of it. I was going to take a third, but it was too late by the time I realized that. Because it wasn't so much they weren't pulling, it was just I didn't get them off right. That's on me. So go ahead and show what we're working them on, Nick. So we got just a regular work sled, a team work sled with a fairly good sized tire behind. It works them. Today's video, theme of today's video, right, Mo, is going to be about what horses have done for us, the owners, the teamsters, the horse people. What they've taught us, what they've done for us. And when she gets up here, I'm going to ask my daughter Kaylee. That's good. Kaylee, how are you?
I'm good.
Chesney, how are you?
Good, and yourself?
Good. Kaylee, I'm going to ask you about the theme of today's video. What have you learned about yourself from horses, or what have horses taught you? What have you benefited?
I feel like working with horses has taught me empathy and given me a lot of patience and understanding that they also have feelings and thoughts and need to be taken care of.
Yeah, they need to be taken care of.
Just the same as you would take care of yourself.
They've probably taught you some less lovey-dovey lessons too, haven't they?
Like make sure the girth is nice and tight when you go running in the field so you don't fall off and then get yelled at by your dad.
Or even darker than that when we have some bad luck or something like that. Probably taught you how to deal with some of that.
Botulism is no fun.
Pardon?
I said botulism is no fun.
Yeah, botulism. Yeah. There's a lot we can learn. Do you think there's anything transferable to your field of psychology that you can learn from horses?
I mean, definitely. I feel like, working with animals is therapeutic for a lot of people, and that definitely goes hand in hand with psychology. And sometimes controlling something makes you feel better about your own life, and I know that can...
So you're into manipulation.
You could say that.
What have we learned from Dorkface?
He's so cute.
That he's itchy. The horses are all individuals. That's one thing I've really learned, and they're all different. And they all have different stages. There's such a difference between Zodiac as a 4-year-old and his brother Ziggy as a 3-year-old. I mean, it's a lot more than 1 year difference. And then Elvis here is a 7-year-old. You mentioned something else earlier.
What? I don't remember.
Community.
Oh, community, yeah. Like going to horse polls and the community of people there that they've known me since I was little, and
You're
like,
still little.
I remember them, and I remember talking, and I remember like meeting new friends at horse polls and horse shows, and never seeing them again because they wouldn't travel. But it was always fun, and it gets me out of my comfort zone and helps me to be less shy when I can talk to like-minded people.
Yeah. Well, I'll take you off the spot. I can see you're not totally comfortable. Why don't you pull them ahead, honey, and I'll film you going around a little. As I said, we are working them on a tire today. The reason we're working them on a tire, we're building some muscle. That's probably a good spot, huh? So we're not logging with these horses anymore, and we're not currently doing farm work. We're done plowing, we're done fitting. We don't have any farm work to do for a while. So we're really not building muscle on that sled. We're building endurance. So I put the tire behind to make it drag heavier and build muscle. Zodiac started the year right off with some farm work. And Zodiac's got some muscle. Power! Elvis has had off since last November. 3 weeks ago today, he went back to work. Elvis has lost a little bit. I don't think his weight has changed much, and obviously he's not skinny. Elvis doesn't have the back that he did. Elvis is a macho man, muscle man, but he still doesn't have the butt that he did. Look at compared to Ziggy. He's gonna, Zodi, yes. He'll develop that back. Even up here by the withers, he needs to develop. Got top pad in his collar. Never had to run a top pad in that collar. I know that collar looks tight, but we were gonna get sore necks if we didn't do that. So we had to adapt. So Elvis kind of got through the winter mostly hay, just a little bit of a grain extender kind of thing. 3 weeks ago we started putting him on a regular diet, and you know, with some grain, commercially made grain balanced with good hay, good water, and we're trying to develop his muscles back. You watch the video the last couple weeks, he's not missing much, but you know, I want them at their best. And so that's something I've learned, and I think many people have, from the horses, from being a horseman. They've learned the physical attributes and how it relates to themselves. You know, just a week or two ago, somebody in the comments talked about, and I keep forgetting this, and they taught me a great term and I keep forgetting. Kaylee, what's the difference between like anaerobic and what's the other term? For like building muscle compared to building endurance. Like a, no, we're gonna pause and I'm gonna look it up. We're here with Elvis and Zodiac. Zodiac's this guy with the bald face, the dork face, and Elvis is this sweetheart. We are working on anaerobic muscles today. We have them on the sled and a tire. We're trying to build some muscles. We're trying to get Elvis to look more like Zodiac with the muscles. We're not logging anymore full time, so the horses aren't in the woods. They're not developing the strength. That is anaerobic, when we're developing muscle and power. Aerobic is when we're developing the endurance, just on the empty sled. So we're working on a good pulling horse will have a balance of both, but mainly today we're working on anaerobics to try to get their strength up. What do you think? Am I a good coach?
Yeah.
Dork face?
Yeah.
So he shut the phone down and looked it up. I'm going to try to remember this. Anaerobic is what we're doing today. That is building muscle and strength and endurance within your muscles for strong muscles. Aerobic is building more just plain endurance, like walking a long ways on an empty load. And we're working on the anaerobics of it. Do you work on both aerobics and anaerobics?
Try.
How about you, Chesney? Do you work out?
Sometimes, yeah. Once in a while.
Another thing, like I said, we're working on anaerobic. We're working on building muscle today. The reason is we're not logging anymore, and they're not hooked to a heavy load as often as they used to. Notice that they're puffing, they're breathing. Not excessively hard, but it's early in the workout. We have to keep watch of their rests and the intervals, because we are hauling a fairly good sized tire. I used to work a 3,400 pound team of oxen on just that tire alone without the sled. So you could, you want to show us?
No, sing them.
So, and it's nice to balance an anaerobic workout with an aerobic workout. You know, take them 5 miles on the empty sled one day and take them 1.5 miles on a heavier load, even heavier than this the next. Kind of gets all groups worked. Kind of simulates what logging really is. I was logging Monday. Where was you?
At work.
I say
Or
that.
no, I was at Aunt Joyce's house.
Yeah.
I was at a cookout. Momo.
Mojo won't ride. Mojo gets a workout more than most any dog I know. Between his puddle stomping and his chasing and pretending to be useful.
He's so cute.
Oh, LV and Mo. That's a nice picture. And I didn't hit the thing quick enough.
Yeah. I was talking to her about how people don't always take good care. And I was curious as to how you guys take care, and I know you guys take good care of your animals. So I was curious how they work and what the difference is between them.
Well, that's a good day to think of those thoughts. Kind of the subject of what Nick and I were working on here.
Yeah.
This would be a good place to rest him. Just pull him in and say, whoa.
Whoa! Here we go. Aw. He's gorgeous.
Chesney's first time driving.
Aw.
I guess I'd like to say something about that without being insulting to anybody else. Most of my friends, when you watch our videos, most of the people you see in them take equally, if not better, care. A lot of people have a real pride in it,
Yeah.
and some don't. There's some folks that only care about winning,
Yep.
or there's some folks that only care about getting the work done. You know, they actually work horses. Elvis.
Naughty, naughty boy.
So he's doing that, he's not paying attention. So we're going to tighten this check a little. That's the only reason I run a check on Elvis. That keeps their head up.
Okay.
Driving and working, he keeps his head in the perfect position. When he's resting, he thinks he needs this goldenrod for nutrition. The nutrition of them almost becomes a science, really. It does become a science, not almost. And the funny thing is, the more I learn, the more simple it is. You know, my dad was born in 1928, and he knew more about feeding horses in the 40s than we do today.
I was gonna say, is there something new every day that you learn from them?
Yes, and it's kind of, the more you learn, you know, everything old is new again. I mean, the biggest trend in horses is feeding them lots of hay and no more grain than necessary. My dad knew that just instinctively, you know, that's what they did.
Yeah, Grandpa had
Our
a lot of
grandfathers did.
Grandpa had a lot of rules for the horses, like the 11 swallows
Yes.
of water
Yeah.
specifically, and count them.
Yeah. Kaylee's talking about 11. When you're watering a hot horse, he would give them 11 swallows, and he'd put his hand right on their throat, latch and count out 11
count
swallows,
out 11
so they didn't overdrink and cool down too quickly. Oh yeah, tons of rules. Yeah, never feed a hot horse grain. Hay is acceptable anytime. I break more rules than he ever did.
You look so short from this angle.
Exercise, lots of turnout. That's something else that people are going back to the future with. They're turning them out all the time. And the more often a horse is turned out, especially in a social situation with other horses, the happier they are and just more content they are and everything. Kaylee and I have one place we kind of pick on that they don't do that enough, huh?
Where?
Right at your other home.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to say that. You pay a lot of money to go there.
Yeah, I don't want to get kicked out.
Oh no, at school?
It's...
Here comes Nick, working Ziggy single. Keeping the boy in shape. Whoa, get you back on track here. Probably keeping both boys in shape. It's probably as good for Nick as it is the horse. That collar's plenty tight. Here come the lightweights. Let's interview Nick. How you living, partner? I'm not so old I can't get on without stopping. Nick, I asked Kaylee, and I asked you, what is working with horses taught you? Taught you about yourself? What kind of skills has it gave you?
It taught me to be a bit more observant.
Yeah?
That's for sure.
Can you give us some examples, maybe?
Well, usually with the horses, I'm looking at them all the time, so I usually notice when something's something's not hooked right, something's wrong with the horse.
Yeah, that's wise. Does that transfer into the rest of your life? Do you find yourself doing that at work, or?
I'll notice stuff.
Notice stuff about yourself? Do you notice if you're being maybe a little tense that day, or if you're being loud, or if you're not conveying the authority you should, or maybe not being as observant? Does it help you like with that?
Yeah.
I think those are called leading questions, aren't they?
Yeah. You're on tape.
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine, Jacob Sherlock, and Jacob is fairly new at horses. He's about 2 years into this, and he is really taken to it. He's really, Jacob and Kim both are very obsessed with it. That's kind of what happens to us. I wrote an article a long time ago about that. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Kind of a based on a true story type article about a guy who ended up with a team of horses he didn't really want, but he was helping his neighbor out, and he took the old team, and then next thing you knew, he had to raise foals out of that team and started driving them and going to contests. Then he learned about horse auctions and went to auctions, and then he bought all kinds of equipment. Then he had to send a few, tail ender cows or dry cows to finance a team of horses, and then he had more empty stanchions in the barn, so he turned them into horse stalls and so on. He had a whole collection of equipment, and he had 7 or 8 horses by the time he was done. It's kind of the progression a lot of us go through. Zodi. So here's what Nick's talking about being observant. We observe like when Zodiac's standing a step behind. Woo, 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 woo. And we stop him there and get him to rest even. Now that was just a little tappy tap. I didn't knock the hell out of him or smack him hard. Just a little tap, and there he is doing what he should. I think that's something that horses will teach you is match your pressure, match your energy to the situation. That wasn't egregious what he was doing. It needed corrected, but it wasn't egregious, so I didn't smack him hard. I just touched him. I mean, I'd hit a fly much harder than I just hit him, and now he's right in the perfect position. If he was doing something awful, you know, not stopping when I say whoa, taking the bit in his teeth, or, you know, kicking at one of us, or something like that, I'm going to match that energy. But anyway, back to our friend Jake of Sherlock. You know, Jake has learned a lot about nutrition, a lot about driving horses. And Jake has told me a lot of this has transferred, and he finds himself calmer in situations now. Some situations that might be tense are no longer tense. Maybe what used to be a confrontation isn't a confrontation, because, I mean, you know, Jake's horses weigh well over a ton. Ours weigh a touch under a ton. You know, you're going to lose in a confrontation between them, so you gotta reason your way through things. And it also teaches you not to be afraid to tackle a situation, because you can work through it. You bet you physically it has helped him, you know, get back in the shape he wants to get. I see it when Jake's helping around the farm or at a horse pull or something. I can see he's physically in a lot better shape than he was even a year ago. I had a friend, Fred Wolfer, Freddie the Third, we always called him. And Fred started pulling horses, you know, after a long, long break, probably 20 years ago. And Fred told me about 5 years into it, he said, horses have saved my life. And that might sound like hyperbole, but Fred was a cigarette smoker and unhealthy, and he couldn't walk 100 yards without having to stop and wheeze and carry on. And the physical aspect of harnessing horses, of working them, of doing your daily chores, got Fred in shape. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say that it may have saved his life. And I know it helps all of us in that regard. I remember George Foreman, when he was making his comeback in his 40s. They asked him his favorite workout for boxing. It was saddling his favorite horse, an American quarter horse, and brushing it off and saddling it and going for a ride, and then taking care of the horse and taking care of the tack and feeding the other horses. And he said, that's a hell of a workout. And that's about the best workout I can do. And that's a professional athlete talking. A chubby one, but a professional athlete that was the heavyweight champion of the world a couple different times. You know, personally, one of the things that horses have taught me, specifically competing with horses, has taught me is it's not terribly important whether we win or lose. Just yesterday we were at a horse pull. We didn't have that great a finish. We could have done better. I could have got stuff together. I say we. I guess I should say I. Could have done a lot better. But guess what? We still went home. We still ate supper. You know, we still hung out with friends that day and had a good day. I mean, that has to ride higher than winning or losing. Now, it's awesome when we win, and I'm really friggin' happy when we win. But you got to balance that, because otherwise when you lose, you're all bent out of shape. And at the end of the day, it's just a horse pull. Woo, that's what I always, woo, when I'm announcing and Nick drives. Isn't that what I always say, Nick?
Yeah.
I say, Nick, it's just a horse pull. We've lost a lot of them. and a lot of times you win when I tell you that. I don't know. Does that work? Does that get your mind off things?
Sure.
You know, Kaylee touched on the psychology of it. The idea of how to train, how horses learn. It doesn't have to be a world different than how people learn. And that's the field Kaylee's going for, is psychology, specifically the teaching end of it. She's going into her junior year when school starts up again. Holy cow, this time flies. Kaylee also touched on, and maybe it was a leading question on my part, but Kaylee also touched on that it teaches you the realities of life, you know. I mean, one reality is simple. I mean, you know, you love the horses, and you go to the barn one day, and all of a sudden Dad sold your favorite horse. Well, we can't keep them all. Otherwise, we'd have 20 horses on a 3-horse budget. You know? Unfortunately, one day you go to the barn and somebody's lying there dead. It's an unfortunate reality, and no matter what kind of a caretaker you are, that happens, and it teaches you how to deal with it. It teaches you that that's how life is. Not just life as a horseman, but life in general. I mean, we all meet accidents and health issues and stuff like that, and teaches you to enjoy what you have while you have it, and to deal with hardship. And I read a quote the other day. I think it was by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I know it was in The Great Gatsby. And he said that he was at an age where he was no longer shocked by the horrors of death. And maybe I'm paraphrasing. Maybe I got it a little bit wrong, but he was talking about Jay Gatsby's dad, Mr. Gatz. And that's what he said. He was at an age where he was no longer horrified by the shocks of death. And it means that he's seen it. He's been there. Doesn't mean he's not heartbroken by it. It doesn't mean he's unaffected by it. But he's seen it before, and it's not as shocking as it used to be. And unfortunately, we learn that. That's a lesson we learn from horses. Most of us have been there. Let me get them going again. Teaches you to, Elvie, to be, kind of want to take this a couple different directions, but here's another reason we got the tire on, because it's a little still slippery in some places, and this sled slides a little too easy. But it teaches you great self-awareness. You know, if you're observant and pay attention to yourself as a horseman, you have the self-awareness with your energy level. You know if you've got to turn it down a notch, if you're just too much, if you're being over the top, when you're making the horses nervous. Again, a quote. And this one's by Warwick Schiller, the horse trainer. And he said something along the lines of, having the wrong energy is constantly telling the horse that something is wrong when there's nothing at all wrong. And there's something to be afraid of when there's nothing to be afraid of. And it takes a lot of horsemen a long time to get over that. it's nerves, you know. And then there's a lot of folks who are a different horseman on competition day. They are nervous of being in front of their friends or whatever, and you know, they just don't do it the same. They get nervous, and they take that energy with them. And even the good self-aware folks are that way. And I think we all are to a little bit. I mean, if you don't get a little bit of butterflies in your stomach and a little bit excited about it, why are you competing? Some of that's kind of the fun part. I think Nick may have hit on one of the biggest things. Whoa. Good boys. Now, notice one little touch with that whip before. And this time when I stopped him, Zodiac stopped exactly where he should. And that wasn't a beat down or a smack. I mean, I'd slap a person on the back harder congratulating them than I hit him with that whip. But just that little reminder. But anyway, as far as Nick said, being observant. So important, you know, vigilant. We did a whole video on that a while ago. But that's something else Jake Sherlock was talking about, you know, that horses have taught him. And he realizes when they're not harnessed right, or he has the wrong collar on the wrong horse, or when something's just wrong and they don't act as comfortable or as spry as they usually do, something like that. If your eveners aren't set the right way, whatever, you notice all that stuff. You know, you put your, if you're like us and you run tail croopers and you put it on, maybe you notice they're not comfortable under their tail or under their bridle or collar or whatever part. And a lot of times you can take that and apply it to life. I mean, you get in your car and all of a sudden you realize that it's not turning over quite as quick as it used to. Maybe it's time for a new battery. Something like that. One thing I have learned that really applies as a life skill, and the first place that applies is as a horse skill, but the different stages we're all in. So I always work a lot of different horses. You know, right here on this farm, I have a 25-year-old mare that's robotically broke. She's so well done. Elvis's mom. I've got Elvis, who's a 7-year-old, who is rock steady and physically mature and in his absolute prime as a pulling horse. From there, I go down to Zodiac, who's a 4-year-old, he has a 10-cent head. He's got a screw loose somewhere. But you know what? We're overcoming that. And Zodiac's becoming a good horse. And he's only a 4-year-old. And even physically, Zodiac looks like a macho man standing here. He's only a 4-year-old. He's got at least another year of maturation. Especially mentally. From there I go down to 3-year-old Ziggy, and Ziggy's a very precocious horse. He's really smart and compliant and big, all of it for his age. Nonetheless, he's a 3-year-old, and it takes a while longer to get him in shape. You've got to use your patience with him. And I apply that to people, not only kids, that there's a huge difference between Kennedy, my 13-year-old, and Nick, my 23-year-old, 10 years older, and the two daughters in between, Kaylee, who you just met, and Nora, who's back home. Everybody's in a different stage, and you know, makes me think back to where I was at that stage, as well as adults. And when we're all in different stages of adulthood. I mean, it's been said, if you're the same person at 50 you were at 30, you haven't grown much. You know, you kind of missed the point. And there's some truth in that, you know, and I hope I'm knocking on the door of 50. I hope I'm a better person today than I was at 30. I had a lot of growth. Had a long ways to go back then. But also we're in different stages with where we are in our journey. You know, there are some folks who are 50 getting married for the first time, or even these days having children for the first time. Other folks that had children and got married early. There's also, as far as specifically horses go, there's folks, adults with so that was on purpose. That was to keep Zodiac from trying to chew on the leaves and stuff while he rests. He's so distracted. So I moved him ahead an extra 6 feet where there's nothing for him to eat here at this intersection. Oh, Elvis found a leaf to eat. I suppose I can let him be a horse. Let him get away with that. But you know, some of us that are the same age have had 40 years of experience driving a horse. And others have had 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, 0 years. And we're all in a different stage, just like these horses are. And it's really, being a horseman has taught me that. Confidence. Being a horseman has really taught me confidence and authority. A lot of times they go hand in hand, but you know, I read a book once about an ox drover during the Great Depression in Australia who hauled wool, and his job was to gather and train I think 5 yokes of oxen, 10 head of oxen, and haul wool a long distance, big wagon loads of wool, and all alone out in the middle of nowhere, out in the bush they called it there. And he said that job lasted maybe 3 years. It was hugely influential in his life. But he said during the next 50 years of living, he often looked back on those 3 years as an ox trainer, and he said to himself, if I can do this, I can do anything. If I can train oxen, if I can gather up a bunch of bullocks, he called them, and teach them to drive and work, I could get through anything. And he said that little sentiment helped him get through a lot of things in life. And I think us as horsemen can relate to that. If you could drive horses, if you could train a team of horses, there isn't much you can't handle in life. It just it gives you the confidence. It's transferable. When I drive horses, when I'm doing my best job pulling horses, I take a deep breath. I put my shoulders back. I remember, I close my eyes and I remember all these laps and hours of practice. And I just go out there and I do it. And other things in life I do, whether it's being an equipment salesman, a logger, being a teacher, competing in trap here and there or something like that. I do the same damn thing. I just put my shoulders back, I take a deep breath, and I remember what got me here, and I go execute what I know I should. And I think the reason I'm able to do that is because I have a baseline with the horses. And I hope that's something that you folks can relate to. What do you have to add, Nick?
Nothing.
Are you saying I beat this subject into the ground?
You did a good job.
Yeah, I did a good job. Thanks. Thanks. Oh, I know I've got more, and I had a quote in mind just a minute ago, but it's not coming, so we'll have to maybe bring that quote on a different day. Maybe I read too much. But as long as you're acquiring these skills, as long as you're acquiring the skills of learning all about a horse's nutrition and conditioning, a lot of that applies to yourself. As long as you're acquiring the skills of training a horse and teaching and getting the connection, a lot of folks call it, the bond, the feel between you and the horse, and it is a lovely thing to feel. Apply that other places. Apply the nutrition and that you learned and the conditioning to yourself and your family. Apply the bond that you learned and how to get this bond. That's transferable. You can apply it to people. You can achieve the same connection with people. The working relationship, you can apply that to people. The dedication that it takes to be a horseman, the dedication that it takes to sit here for hours every day and get these guys in shape to go try to win a trophy at a horse pull. You can apply that to other things, and you can dedicate yourself to your job that way and become really good at your job. You could dedicate yourself to your family that way, and you can learn to be the best parent you can. It's just, to me, it's endless. All the things that start here with this horse flesh that can take you all the way back and around to just being a better person and the best version of yourself. And maybe it's really basic of me, because that's all I have to go on. I don't do a ton of other hobbies. I don't hunt like I used to. I'm not an anti-hunter. I just don't get out and do it. I don't compete in woodsman's field days. I don't, I don't shoot trap. I don't pitch horseshoes. I don't race cars. I train horses and I train oxen. I do train the odd dog here and there, but speaking of odd dogs, where is that oddball? But so that's what I have to go by. But I'm telling you, it's very transferable skills. And I don't always achieve those skills, but I try. That's a groovier ox, eh? And as long as you're trying and trying to do better and trying to be the best version of you, even if it's slow progress, it's progress. And I can't think of a better, more enjoyable way to bring out the best version of you than working with horses. Well, I hope some folks found this video relatable. I hope maybe you can reflect yourself and think of what working horses, driving horses, even just owning horses or taking care of horses has done for you, and what skills and traits that's given you that have made you a better person. And I'd love to hear your own observations in the comments. So, well, it's Sunday and we got a couple weeks off for pulling, so you're probably gonna see a few more of these videos. We're not pulling next weekend, but we probably will film a pull and put it up here for you, but we're not gonna compete in that one because I have to work. But anyway, so you got 2 weeks before the next pull, so you'll see more conditioning and more general almost random thoughts from us. So I appreciate everybody that watches. Our channel's growing. Our Facebook page is getting a lot more followers. And I appreciate every one of you, and I appreciate you folks sticking with us. And I know every week's not the best quality video, and every week's not we cover such a broad variety of subjects. Every week's not the right video for some people. Some people would never watch a horse pulling video. Some people would only watch horse pulling videos. Some people don't care about plowing. Some people don't care about the nutrition aspect. But overall, I've got a strong bunch of followers, subscribers, and I appreciate every one of you, and appreciate all the encouragement. Thank you, folks.